Hello, fourth grade, and welcome to lesson 5-8, and we're going to continue using sharing to divide in this lesson. So just like we talked about in the last lesson, we used place value blocks, and we were able to separate them or decompose some of them into smaller pieces, right? We took it and we broke it apart. So we would take the hundreds and break them into tens if we needed to, or we would take the tens and break them into ones if we needed to, and so on. Let's go ahead and watch our short lesson video. Then we'll get into our notes, examples, and guided practice together.
How can you record division with a one-digit divisor? Helen has 55 postcards. As an art project, she plans to glue 4 postcards onto each sheet of colored paper. How many pieces of paper can Helen fill? You can use place value blocks to solve the problem. Estimate. 55 divided by 4 is close to 60 divided by 4 equals 15. Divide the tens. Divide the 5 tens into 4 equal groups. There is 1 10 in each group and 1 10 and 5 ones left over. Divide the ones. Trade the extra 10 for 10 ones. The 1 10 and 5 ones make 15 ones. Divide the 15 ones into 4 equal groups. There are 3 ones in each group and 3 ones left over. How many pieces of paper will be?
Okay, so last time when we were working on dividing using partial quotients. So what they did in this section is they took it a step further, and instead of stacking your partial quotients on top, we're just going to stack based on place value. So how many 4s are in 55? Well, I know there's 10 4s in 40, or 10 groups of 4 makes 40. So there's at least 40 inside of 55. So I would put my 1 over here in the tens place on top of the digit that's in the tens place that I'm working with. So a 1 that's in the tens place is times 10. So 4 times 10 is 40. And when I did that subtraction, I was left over with 15. So how many 4s are there in 15? I know there's at least 3 4s because 4 times 3 is 12, but 4 times 4 is 16. So that's too far. I can't use 4. So I'm going to stick with 4 times 3 is 12. So I put my 3 over here in the ones place on top of that digit that I'm working with. And I subtract off the 12. So 15 take away 12 is equal to 3. And then 3 is my remainder. So here they're working with place value, except they're not stacking it. So when they're working with the tens and something that is a group of 10, they're going to put it above the tens digit. When they're working with the ones and they're working with something that's just in the ones place, so 4 times 3, not 4 times 30, they put it in the ones place and then do their subtraction.
Be filled. Helen can fill 13 pieces of colored paper. She will have 3 postcards left over. This quotient is reasonable since it is close to the estimate of 15.
Okay, so let's jump out of here and take a look at our notes before we jump into our guided practice for this lesson. First, let's go over this example on top. So it says, find 135 divided by 2. So 135 divided by 2, first they estimated, they said that's about 140 divided by 2. So I know 14 divided by 2 is 7. So 140 divided by 2 should be about 70. So our answer is going to be close to 70, but it's going to be less than 70 because remember, we rounded up. So if I'm going to do my stacking and dividing, now I'm going to regroup my 100 into 10 tens. So now I have 13 tens because I can't do 1 divided by 2. So I broke it up and now I have, instead of one group of 100, because I can't share one group of 100 equally between two people. I need to break it apart. So this became 10 tens plus the 3 tens that I already have. So now I'm working with 13 tens. Now I know that there's at least 6 groups of 2s in 13 because 6 times 2 is 12. So over here, 13 tens times 60, because this is the tens place digit, this is the hundreds place digit, it's the ones place digit over here on the far right. Since I'm working with 2 times 60 to give me 120, that 6 is going to go above the tens place, and I'll subtract off that 120. So 135 minus the 120 gave me 15. Now I have to think, how many groups of 2 are there in 15? Well, I know 7 groups of 2 is 14. 8 groups of 2 is 16. I can't go up to 16 because that's too high. So I'm going to use 7. So 2 times 7, which is just 2 times 7 in the ones place, so that's written over the ones place, gives me 14. So I'll subtract off the 14 and I'll have a remainder of 1. Now, again, I'm stuck with the same thing. I can't take 1 and share it between 2 equal groups. So this is going to be my remainder. So first we took the 13 tens and divided them into 2 equal groups, and 6, so we put 6 tens in each group. And then we had some leftovers. Then I had 15 ones left over, and I had to figure out, how do I divide 15 ones into 2 equal groups? And I could put 7 in each group, and then I would have 1 left over. So the quotient 67 remainder 1 is reasonable since it's close to the estimate of 70 that we came up with in the beginning. Now let's take a look at our notes. So using sharing to continue dividing using your division bridge, use it to continue dividing using your division bridge, and count using place values. So over here, if I have 55 divided by 4 and I want to use sharing and division. So I drew my 50 and my 5 up here. So first thing, I have 5 tenths to share with 4 groups. So I drew my 4 groups. So I put one of them in each group, right? I crossed them out as I used them. And then I had this 5th group left over, this 5th 10 rod. Now I can't share that 10 rod between 4 groups equally. So I had to break apart that last 10 into ones. So over here, I switched it out for ones. So now I had those 10 ones plus the 5 ones from the beginning of my question. So now I had 15 ones. So I had to figure out how to share the ones between 4 groups. So if I have 15 ones and I want to share them between 4 groups, I kept adding them in until I ran out of groups of 4. So when I couldn't split into 4 equal groups, I was left over with 3 over here. Because I know 4 times 3 is 12. That's as close as I can get to 15 without passing it, because 4 times 4 is 16. That's too far. So the extra 3 ones are going to be left over since I can't share those 3 equally between 4 groups. So 3 is going to be my remainder. Now let's take a look at how we stack and divide this. So how many 4s are in 50? Well, I know there's at least one group of 10 groups of 4 in 50. So I'm going to put the one group of 10 on top of the tens place. 4 times 10 is 40. I'm going to subtract those from each other, and I'm going to be left with 15. Then I have to think, how many groups of 4 are in 15? Well, I know there's 3 groups of 4 in 12. And like we said before, 4 groups of 4 is 16, and that's too far. So I'm going to stick with 3. Now that 3 is in the ones place because we're just doing 4 times 3 over here. 4 times 3 is 12. I subtract it off, and I'm left with my remainder of 3. So there are 3 ones in each group with 3 remaining. So we were able to share using place value blocks. We were able to stack and divide by place value. And then we're going to go on to another example. Now over here, we have 143 divided by 2. Now, because you know that all even numbers can be divided by 2, and even numbers have to end with a 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0, when you look at 143, that 3 is not an even number. So we know we're going to end up with remainders in here somewhere. So here's my 143, and I need to figure out how to share it equally between 2 groups. So first I'm going to estimate. 143 is about 140, and 140 divided by 2 is 70. So I know my answer is going to be really close to 70. So I'm going to show my work. So I have my 100, my 40, and my 3 right here. Now I can't share 100 between two groups, so I had to break apart that 100 into 10 tens. So I regrouped that group of 100 into 10 tens. So now I have 14 tens altogether. I have 14 tens and 3 ones. So now I'm going to start sharing. So I know if I have 14 tens, 14 divided by 2 is 7. So there's going to be 7 here and 7 here. If you're not sure, just start putting 1 in each group until you run out. So I was able to share all of my tens. I didn't need to break apart the tens. I was able to share all of them completely. But then I had these 3 ones. So I put 1 here and I put 1 here, but then I had 1 left over. Now I can't share that 1 equally between two groups. So that 1 ended up being my remainder. So over here we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tens. That's 70 plus 1 more is 1, 71. So my answer over here was 143 divided by 2 was equal to 71 with a remainder of 1. Now we're going to show by dividing and recording our answer. So we did our work up here. We showed how we solved it up here. Now we're going to get into actually stacking and dividing. So 143 divided by 2. So I can't do that 100 group and split it into 2. So I have to share that 100 group or decompose it, break it apart into 10 tens and 4 tens. So now if I'm working with 10 tens and 4 tens, that's 14 tens. How many groups of 2 are in 14 tens? Well, I know there's 7 groups of 2 in 14 ones. So there's going to be 70 groups of 2 in 14 tens. So 2 times 70, remember it's stacked over the tens place because that's the digit we're working with right now. 2 times 70 is 140. So I'm going to put my 7 over here in the tens place and write my 140 down here because we said 2 times 70 is 140 and subtract. So then I have 3. Now I have to think how many 2s are found in a group of 3. Well, there's one group of 2 found in a group of 3. So I put my 1 up here and then I subtract my 1 group of 2 from here and I have a remainder of 1. I can't break this 1 apart into 2 equal groups. So that's going to stay as my remainder. So 143 divided by 2 was equal to 71 with a remainder of 1. Now this was, remember, very close to our estimate. Our estimate was 70. Our answer was 71, remainder 1. Now how do we go back and we check? Well, we have to do the inverse operation. And then we add the remainders in. So the inverse or opposite of division is multiplication. So I have to do 71 divided by 71 times 2. So 2 times 1 is 2. Sorry guys, I got my numbers backwards over here. 2 times 1 is 2, and we had a remainder of 1 that we added in. So I'll have you guys adjust that in class when I see you next time. 2 times 1 is 2. And then 2 times 7 is 14. So we put that down here. Now, if you wanted to use partial products, you could have done 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 70 is 140. And then added the 140 plus the 2 to make 142. But we had a remainder over here of 1. That remainder is right there. So we have to add that 1 back in. So 142 plus 1 more is 143. Now 143 was our answer here. If it matches our dividend up here, then we know our answer is correct. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our guided practice for this section. For our guided practice for 5-8, question number 1 says, how can you use place value blocks to help you with dividing? So place value blocks help you with dividing because they help you to see which place values you're working with and focus on dividing each place value separately. It gives you the opportunity to see when you're breaking a number apart into groups of tens or into ones. That way you're able to solve correctly. For numbers 2 and 3, it says estimate and then solve. So for number 2, we have 82 divided by 5. So I can say 82 is about 100. 100 divided by 5 is 20. That's going to be my estimate. So I know my answer is going to be less than 20 because I took 82 up to 100, right? We rounded up. So that means our real answer is actually going to be less. So how many groups of 5 are in 80? Well, I know there's at least 10 groups of 5. I put it on top of the tens place because that's what I'm working with. So I'm going to subtract off 50 here. And then I'm going to be left with 32. Now, how many 5s are in 32? Well, I know 5 times 5 is 25, and 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 times 7 is 35. I can't go up to 5 times 7 because that's too far. So I'm going to go with 5 times 6. So that's written above the ones place because that's what I'm working with, 32 ones. I'm going to subtract off my 5 times 6 is 30, and I'm going to have 2 left over. Now, I don't have any groups of 5 that I can make with 2, and I can't share 2 equally between 5 groups. So my answer is going to be 16 remainder 2. Now, my answer is reasonable because I knew it would be less than 20, but not too far off, and 16 is close to 20. Our next one is 659 divided by 7. So it said estimate first and then solve. So I said, okay, I'm going to estimate. I'm going to round to the nearest 100. 659 is going to become 700. 700 divided by 7 is 100. So I know my answer is going to be close to, but less than 100. Now, can I divide 600 flats between 7 groups? I can't do that. So I have to take my 600s and break it into tens. So now I have 65 tens. So what number can I use to get close to 65 tens? Now I know 7 times 8 is going to give me 63. So 7 times 9 is going to give me 63. So 7 times 90 is going to give me 630. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to put my 9 over here in my tens place. And I'm going to subtract 630 here. 659 minus 630 is going to give me 9 minus 0 is 9, 5 minus 3 is 2, and then the 6 minus 6 is 0. So how many 7s are in 29? Now I know that 7 times 3 is 21, 7 times 4 is 28, and then 7 times 5 is 35. That's too far, so I can't go up that high. So I'm going to stick with 7 times 4. I'm going to write that 4 over the ones place because that's the digit that I'm working with right now. So 7 times 4 we said is 28. I'm going to subtract the 28 and I have 1 left over. Now I can't share 1 equally between 7 groups. So my remainder here is going to be 1. And my answer was correct because I knew that my answer was going to be close to 100 but less than it. And my actual answer ended up being 94 with a remainder of 1. Now remember, we can do the inverse operation to check. So let's do, instead of doing 659 divided by 7 is equal to 94 remainder 1, let's do the inverse operation. So 94 times 7, let's work backwards. So if I have 94 times 7, 7 times 4 is 28. So I'm going to put my 8 here and carry my plus 2 over here. 7 times 9 is 63, plus 2 is 65. Now I have 658. I need to add my remainder. So plus 1 gave me 659. So I can see that that matches my dividend, so my answer is correct. I can do the same thing up here. So I can do 16 times 5. So instead of having 82 divided by 5 is equal to 16 with a remainder of 2, I'm going to work backwards. 16 times 5 16 times 5, and then whatever I get, I'm going to add my 2 because that was my remainder. 5 times 6 is 30. Put my 0, carry my plus 3 over here. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. So I'm going to have 80 plus 2 gives me 82. So I can see over here my answer matches my dividend up here. So I know my answer is correct. Always do your inverse operation to check your work and make sure that you're answering correctly. That takes you to the end of lesson 5-8 and our guided practice. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.